ॐ सदाशिवसमारम्भाम्
शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम्
मदाचार्यपर्यन्ताम्
अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे
वन्दे
गुरुपरम्पराम्।
गुरुपरम्पराम्
ॐ सहना भवतु
सहनावतु
सहनौ भुनक्तु
सहनौ
सह
भुनक्तु
वीर्यं
सह वीर्यं
करवावहै
करवावहै।
तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा
तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु
विद्विषावहैः।
मा विद्विषावहै।
ॐ
ॐ
शान्तिः शान्तिः
शान्ति
शान्तिः.
शान्तिः।
Okay, so we are still on the sixth Anuvaka of Brahmanandavalli of Taitriya Upanishad. So those who have the mantra pushpam, the sixth Anuvaka, one, two, three, the fourth line from the bottom, middle of that, we will chant. Tad anupravishya
तदनुप्रविश्य
अनुप्रविश्य
satchatyacha bhavat
सच्चत्यजाभवत्
सत्यजाभवत्
niruktam cha niruktam cha
निरुक्तं
निरुक्तं
च
निरुक्तं च
निरुक्तं च
निरुक्तं च
nilayanam cha nilayanam cha
निलयनं च
निलयनं च
निलयनं च
निलयनं च
vijnanam cha vijnanam cha
विज्ञानं
विज्ञानं
च
विज्ञानं च
विज्ञानं
विज्ञानं
च
च
satyam cha nirtam cha
सत्यं
सत्यं च
सत्यं
चामृतं
नृतं च
चानृतं च
satyam abhavat
सत्यमभवत्
सत्यमभवत्
tadidam kincha
यदिदं
यदिदं
किञ्च
किञ्च
tat satyamityachakshate
तत्सत्यमित्याचक्षते
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 तदप्येष श्लोको भवति
तदप्येष
तदप्येष
श्लोको
श्लोको
तदप्यश्लोको भवति
भवति।
भवति
Okay. So we had completed the discussion on Anupraveshaha. Now, why does Shruti talk about Brahman's Anupraveshaha? Because basically that Brahman can be recognized where? Only in the Antakarna, nowhere else. The consciousness aspect, which we are discussing, can be recognized only in the Antakarana. And Shankara, in his commentary, he says it's like the pot. The light reveals the pot, and therefore you can say that the pot has a dependency on the light to be revealed. So that's the normal understanding. But Shankara says there is one more aspect. It is because of the pot that the light is seen. So there is a dependency of the light on the pot for being seen. Okay, that point is important. The pot is dependent on the light for its revelation. Similarly, the light is dependent on the pot for being seen. Right? What Shankara is saying that for the pot to be recognized, for the existence of the pot to be recognized, the pot is dependent upon the light. But he says, similarly, the light cannot be recognized in the absence of the pot. And what is the analogy? Similarly, Brahman is dependent on the mind. There is a dependency of Brahman on the mind for its recognition to be there. For us to recognize that this is Brahman, that Brahman's existence is there, the Brahman is dependent upon the mind. So one should note the words very carefully. Brahman is dependent on the mind for the recognition of its existence. We should not make the mistake of thinking that Brahman is dependent upon the mind for its existence. You see the difference? Exists independently of anything, including the mind. But for the recognition of its existence, there is a dependency upon the mind. I hope that point is clear. It's a very important point. And that is why there are two meanings of Anupravesha. One is Brahman forming the Chidahabhasa, the RC in the mind. That is one of the interpretations, that one of the meanings. The other is that this Brahman is available in the mind as the Sakshi. Okay, so two very clear meanings should be understood. That Brahman forms the Chidabhasa, the RC in the mind. That is the Pramata. That RC is called the Pramata, the knower. Brahman is also available in the mind as the non, as a akarta apramata, not a knower also. And that is what we call Brahman enclosed in the mind, different from Brahman reflected in the mind. So Brahman reflected in the mind is Chidabhasa, RC, Pramata. Brahman available in the mind, enclosed in the mind, is the Sakshi, the OC. In fact, in Chandogya Upanishad, you will see that it takes the first meaning, that Brahman is the RC forming in the mind, while Taitriya takes the second meaning, that Brahman is the mind enclosed entity, which we call Sakshi. Now, before ending this particular discussion on Anupravesha, Shankara makes a few interesting observations. He says that this Anupraveshi Shruti, this Anupravesha Vakyam, is to reveal the existence of Brahman. Because this Akshi, the mind enclosed Brahman, which we call Sakshi in the Jiva, is nothing but Brahman alone. So it is Brahman alone available as Sakshi. So this availability, so all very, complex ideas. The original Brahman, OC, alone is available as mind enclosed Brahman, which we call Sakshi. This availability as Sakshi of the original Brahman is what you mean when you say that I am. I am means I am aware that I exist. Right? I'm aware that I'm conscious. So that I am, aham, aham asmi, that is the expression of that Brahman, which is available as Sakshi. Okay. Therefore, that Brahman is available in me as I am. So, what is he saying?
गरम
If,
पानी पी के करवाना बता भी दीजिए दिन में
okay. What I am saying is that if you have no doubts that you exist, if you can say confidently that I am, which means if you are saying confidently that I exist, then where is the reason to doubt the existence of Brahman? Because Shruti is telling you, it is that same Brahman which is available as Sakshi, which is the meaning of the expression Ahamasmi. So if you are convinced about your own existence, then you should be convinced about the existence of Brahman. And that Brahman is what? Jagat Karanam. Therefore, he says you should accept that Brahman exists. And this is the meaning of the Anupravesha. This is the reason why the Anupravesha Vakyam is there. You start with what? You start with Paroksha Jnana. There is Brahman. Right? That there is Brahman is in Sanskrit Brahma Asti. Brahman is there. This is Paroksha Jnanam. And when you say that Brahman is there is a faith, right? Because at this stage, you are accepting the words of the Shastra that Brahman asti, Brahman is there. And therefore, this starting point, Brahman is there, Brahman exists, is of course Paroksha Jnana, and it's called Shraddha. From this starting point is Shraddha, Brahma asti. From there only you can travel through Jnanam to end up with Brahma asmi. I am Brahman. So it starts with there is Brahman, which is Paroksha Jnanam. It ends with I am Brahman, which is Aparoksha Jnana. With this, the discussion on Anubhavesha Shruti is over. Okay. Then we come to the next portion, which we just chanted Satcha, Tyacha Bhavat, etc. So this part of the mantra, what is the essence? Previously, Brahman was said to be the Nimitta Karana, the instrumental cause, which has Ichha Shakti, Jnana Shakti, and Kriya Shakti. Okay. Once you say that Brahman is Nimitta Karanam, you know that the Nimitta Karanam needs material to create. The carpenter is Nimitta Karanam. But without the Upadana Karanam, the wood, the carpenter cannot create anything. So the moment you say that Brahman is Nimitta Karanam, you have to say that, you have to ask a question. What then is the Upadana Karanam? Remember, this is the Avyakta Avastha, right? In Avyakta Avastha, there is no Panchabhutani. The creation process has not started. This is Pralayam Avastha, before the creation of the universe. So the five elements have yet not been created. What is present alone is Brahman. And that Brahman is the Nimitta Karanam. So logically, since only Brahman is present, Brahman has to be both the Nimitta Karanam as well as the Upadana Karanam. Normally, it's a rule in worldly affairs that the instrumental cause and the material cause, the Nimitta Karanam and the Upadana Karanam, are separate. This general rule is called what? Utsarga. So normally, Utsarga is that Nimitta and Upadanam are separate Karanams. But every Utsarga has a Apavada, exception. And this exception we found in the mantra Yatho Urunabhi. Which Upanishad?
Mundaka.
Mundaka. So exception is there, and Mundaka presents the exception as the spider in the web. The Nimitta and the Upadana Karanam are the same. Right. So, and we have those who have studied physics, you know that matter, which is very much tangible, which you can hold and see and smell, can be converted into non-tangible form. What is that?
Energy.
Energy. Therefore, the question here is if a non-tangible, non-visible, non-handleable energy can convert itself into tangible matter, is it not possible that a non-tangible, non-visible consciousness can appear as the tangible world? This is the answer. Therefore, that avyakta maya is the upadana karanam. So Brahman, with the help of that maya, creates the world. Right? So maya is there at cosmic level. Remember, at the micro level, there is another factor, our own karmas. The Vyashti karma is very much a factor for creation. At samashti level, it is maya. Therefore, when we say that Nimitta and Upadana Karanam are the same, we are saying that Brahman therefore becomes the creator of the universe. And since Brahman is also not separate from the Upadana Karanam, you can say Brahman is the creator of the universe, and Brahman is also the universe itself, because it is the very Upadana, the very material. Okay. So he says, Satcha Tyacha Bhavat. So that breakup is Sat Cha Tyat Cha Abhavat. Sat Cha Tyat Cha Abhavat. So Sat Cha, here Sat is taken as that which has got a visible form, that which is Indriya Gochara, that which can be recognized by the five senses. That is Sat. And Tyat here means that which has no form, that which cannot be recognized by Indriyas, by five senses. So Sat here means the visible universe, Sthula Prapancha. And Tyat here means the Sukshma Prapancha. And Abhavat means that it is the Tyat which becomes the Sat. Or you can say that it is Brahman which becomes both Sat and Tyat. It is Brahman which becomes both the Sukshma Prapancha and the Sthula Prapancha at the Samashti level, at the macro level. And it is Brahman which becomes the individual bodies and individual physical body and the individual subtle body at the micro level. Brahman becomes both. So earlier, the term was Asrujat. That Asrujat, we said, indicates Brahman as Nimitta Karanam. And therefore, the Sat here has to be translated as Murtam. Murtam means that which is visible. And Tyat here has to be translated as Amurtam, that which is not visible. Okay. Now remember, in the in this at the samashti level, at the macro level, if you take the five elements, can you divide them into Sat and Tyat, Murtam and Amurtam?
Akasha and
Yes,
Vayu will be
Akasha.
Amurta.
Akasha and Vayu are Amurtam, visible and invisible, and
Prithvi,
Agni,
Agni,
Apaha, Prithvi will be Murta.
Agni,
Apaha,
Apaha,
Apaha, and
Prithvi.
Prithvi are
Prithvi.
Murtam. Right? This is at samashti level because as yet the Pancha Mahabhutani have not been created. At the Vyashti level, if you take it, remember the Sthula Shariram is Murtam, the Sukshma Shariram is Amurtam. But the important point to note, all are Karyam. Amurta Prapancha, remember here is Sukshma Avastha, subtle aspect, not the Karana Avastha. So, why not Karana Avastha?
Karanavastha is always there.
Karana was always there, and the discussion here is creation. Karana is never created, right? So during the Pralaya Kali, the Avyakta Nama Rupa is called Maya, right? And that's why Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that he alone has become the universe. And that is why I can do Surya Namaskar to the sun, because it is he alone. This Karana Prapancha is Anadi. It is Maya itself. It can never be created. It is always there with Brahman. Dependent entity, but always there with Brahman. Therefore, whenever we talk about creation, we are talking about only the Sthula Prapancha and Sukshma Prapancha only. Okay, so that is Tyat and Tyat, Sat and Tyat. Then Niruktam Cha, Niruktam Cha. So Niruktam means Nischayena uktam iti niruktam. Nischayena uktam means that which can be clearly stated, clearly defined. And out of the two, the visible universe and the invisible universe, which is that which can be clearly defined?
The sthula.
Sthula prapancha. Therefore, niruktam is another word indicating sthula prapancha. By the same logic, aniruktam. Niruktam cha, aniruktam cha. Aniruktam means that which is not possible to clearly define. That is another word for sukshma prapancha. You can also say sthula shariram and sukshma shariram. One is macro, samashti. One is micro, veshti. Then nilayanam cha, anilayanam cha. So nilayanam, you know, in the south, those who have been to the south, this nilayanam is very often a word for the house, for your residence. What does it mean?
Support, house support.
The support. It's the place where it supports you. So nilayanam means a support, right? And here, out of the what they call gross element and the subtle element, which can you use as support? You can keep a desk on Prithvi. You can build a house on Prithvi, but you cannot build a house on Vayu or space, right? So that which supports is Nilayanam. That which does not support, does not have the capacity to support is Anilayanam. And therefore Nilayanam is the Sthula Prapancha. Anilayanam is the Sukshma Prapancha. All different words for the same concept, gross and subtle universe. Then Vijnanam cha, Avijnanam cha. So Vijnanam means Chetana Prapancha, that which is sentient. And here we have to understand very, very carefully. Whatever we think is sentient, the human being, the cat, the tiger, the lion, the elephant, ultimately its basic component is what? Is matter only. And matter is inert. It is capable of reflecting consciousness. That subtle body, which is also matter, is capable of reflecting consciousness. And that is why the mind appears consciousness. Because ultimately it is only jada matter, inert matter, but it appears to be consciousness because it has the capacity to reflect consciousness. So Vijnanam is there. And Avijnanam means Achetana Prapancha. This is matter without reflected consciousness. So the difference is a very subtle one. Both are matter. The matter which can reflect consciousness, the sentient beings, that is Vijnanam. The matter which is not capable of reflecting consciousness because it doesn't have a subtle body, that is called Avijnanam. Then Satyam cha Anritam cha Satyam Abhavat. A very, very beautiful little phrase. Satyam Anritam Satyam Abhavat. Okay. What do you notice which is slightly unique here? Satyam cha Anritam cha Satyam Abhavat.
Satyam appears twice.
Satyam appears twice. So this is a very unique sentence talking about the three levels of reality which we talk about. As you can see, the word Satyam occurs twice. Which one refers to which order of reality? So there is the first Satyam, which is Vyavaharika Satyam, which means it is a product. It's a transactional reality. Anrhythm means that which is not as real as Satyam, which is the dream, the Pratibhasika Satyam. Pratibhasika Satyam is also Karyam. The only difference is the Vyavaharika Satyam is transactional reality. The Pratibhasika Satyam is subjective reality. And then comes the Cha Satyam. That is the Paramarthika Satyam, which is the Karanam. So the second Satyam is the Karanam, the Paramarthika Satyam. The first Satyam is the Karyam, Vyavaharika Satyam. The second Anrhythm is the Pratibhasika Satyam. And Abhavat means becomes the other two. So you have to rearrange the whole thing. Satyam Abhavat. The Paramarthika Satyam, Abhavat means becomes. The Paramarthika Satyam becomes Satyam, the Vyavaharika Satyam, as well as Anritam, the Pratibhasika Satyam. Right? So the Jagat, the universe, is transactional reality, empirical reality, which we call Vyavaharika Satyam. The dream world, Swapna Prapancha, is subjective reality, Pratibhasika Satyam. It's less real than Jagat Prapancha, but you have all experiences there, so you can't say it is not there at all. So you can reword it to say, from the standpoint of the Vyavaharika Satyam, the transactional world, which we call the Jagrata Avastha, from that Avastha, the Swapna Avastha, the Swapna Prapancha, is Mithya. But from the point of view of Brahman, which is the Paramarthika Satyam, both the others are Mithya. Jagrata is also Mithya and Swapna is also Mithya. Okay. So Satyam Abhavatu means that Paramarthika Satyam, that alone appears both as the transactional world, the Jagrata Avastha, as well as the dream world, the Swapna Avastha, and Yadidam Kincha, and everything else which is there. So this is sort of omnipotent clause, anything which I've missed out. Yadidam Kincha, whatever else is there, that also is Brahman. You have to supply Yadidam Kincha, Brahma Abhavat, Satyam Abhavat. Everything else also Brahman is. And Tat Satyam Itya Chakshate. Tat Satyam Iti Achakshate. That Brahman alone is called Satyam, which is what? Paramarthika Satyam.
Yeah.
Okay. And therefore, the existence of the universe is nothing but the existence of Brahman. The existence of your gold chain is nothing but the existence of the gold. And the proof is very simple. You take away the gold, the chain will not be there. And therefore, if you apply that, when you look at the whole universe, you are experiencing existence principle Brahman alone. If you remove the universe, if you remove Brahman, which you can't, but supposing hypothetically, if you remove Brahman, there will be no you, there will be no universe also. And he ends it by saying, Tadapyesha Shloko Bhavati. And in this respect, there is the following Rig mantra. Okay. Now we will request Rituji to chant the seventh Anuvak.
Thank you, Acharya.
ॐ असद्वा इदमग्र आसीत् ततो वै सदजायत तदात्मानज्ञ स्वयमकुरुत तस्मात् तत्सुकृतमुच्यत इति यद्वै तत्सुकृतं रसो वै सः रसज्ञ हेवायं लब्ध्वा नन्दी भवति को ह्येवान्यात् कः प्राण्यात् यदेष आकाश आनन्दो न स्यात् एष ह्येवानन्दयाति यदा ह्येवैष एतस्मिन्नदृश्येनात्म्ये निरुक्ते निलयने भयं प्रतिष्ठां विन्दते अथ सोऽभयं गतो भवति यदा ह्येवैष एतस्मिन्नुदरमन्तरं कुरुते अथ तस्य भयं भवति तत्त्वेव भयं विदुषो मन्वानस्य तदप्येष श्लोको भवति.
Okay. So, in this mantra, we are saying that before the creation was created, okay, before the arrival of the creation already existed, which means that, really speaking, there is no creation at all. Because if something which was there earlier is also there now, you can't say something new has been created. So, a very important idea, nothing can be created by anyone, including Ishvara. And you will find that this unique aspect is there only in Sanatana Dharma. Because every other, you talk to anybody else, every other religion, they will talk about a God creating something, right? And if you ask that person, what did he create it out of? What is the answer going to be?
Out of nothing.
Out of nothing. And if you say that violates, basic common sense, what will he say? Right? He will say that God is omnipotent. He can do anything. But here we are saying no. We are saying that nothing can be created by God because matter cannot be created or destroyed. Okay, that's what we call Satkaryavada. Of course, we have Einstein also who said E is equal to mc squared. Matter only transforms, can never be created. But we have our own Satkaryavada. Matter cannot be created or destroyed. The universe always existed, either in unmanifest form or in manifest form. The whole creation is only a cycle from avyaktarupa to vyaktarupa and from vyaktarupa to avyaktarupa. And Krishna said this very beautifully in chapter 2. You recall?
Avyaktadini bhutani.
There is only non-creation, there's only invisible form, visible form, again invisible form. So he asked Arjuna, what are you perturbed about? You are always there. You will continue to be there. Okay. Now, in this, the movement from invisible to visible form and visible to invisible form, these are all vikaras, modifications. And that is why Janma and Maranam are also vikaras. So he says, Asadva idam agre asit. Okay, that when you break it up, the sandhi will, because it's sandhi, it is idam agra in the text. But when you break it, what it becomes asat va idam agre asit. Asat. Asat here is unmanifest, avyakta avastha. Of asat, why indeed asit was existing, idam, this universe. So the word asat here is not tuchha. Okay, you cannot take the word asat as tuchha. You have to take it as unmanifest, avyakta avastha of Brahma, of Maya, rather. Okay. So idam asit vai asat. This universe itself was existing earlier, agree, before, was existing earlier, before, agree means before the creation, before the manifestation rather, it was existing as the unmanifest Brahman, right? So somebody may say, why can't you take it as non-existent? Tuchha, Tuchha Asat. You remember we have two Asats, Tuchha Asat and Mithya Asat. I hope everybody knows, anybody doesn't know that? Everybody knows. Okay. So if you take it as Tuchha Asat, what happens? What is the problem? It becomes Madhyamika Buddhism, which otherwise called Shunyavada. And what is the main thing there? Existing products are born from non-existing causes. Therefore, if you take this asat as tuchha asat, it will mean that there was nothing existing, and from that nothingness, the Jagat was born. So then the question is here, in that case, why doesn't the Upanishad, Shruti, why doesn't it say mithya or mithya asat? Why does it say asat only? Shankara says that whatever is potentially existing, it is not useful for you until the transformation takes place. So whatever is potentially existent in avyakta avastha, you can say it is non-existent. I'll give you example. Supposing you want to make butter, what do you need?
Milk.
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 You need milk, right? Now, can you say that there is potential butter in that milk? Can you say that?
Yes, we
Yes.
can say.
It is there.
It is there in the milk. But can you say that I can use that potential butter to put on my bread?
No, not available for transport.
Right. Therefore, that potential butter is not available for the transactional action of putting on your bread until it gets extracted. Right. Similarly, we talked about pots. All pots are there in the clay, potentially, but you cannot pour water or keep water in that. And therefore, Shankara says, when Upanishad says asat, it is as good as non-existent. So don't read anything more into it. So this avyaktam, this potential existence is of the world, is there as Maya, which exists in Brahman, dependently, of course. Just as you can say that tonight's dream, whatever I'm going to dream tonight, it is potentially existing in me, right? Then, tato vai sat ajayat. So then tataha means that what? That avyaktam. Tataha vai, from that avyaktam alone, sat ajayat. So remember when you say tataha, avyaktam here, it means avyakta prapancha, the unmanifest universe, which in Tattvabodha terms is what?
Ishwar.
Ishvara, which is the other word?
Antaryami.
Antaryami.
Antaryami. Antaryami Ishvara. This tataha is Antaryami Ishvara. And from that Antaryami Ishvara, why indeed, why is the emphasis? From that Antaryami Ishvara only, Sat Ajayata. Sat, remember, has to be connected to Satyat. Sat here means that visible universe was born from the Antaryami through a process, of course, Hiranyagarbha and all that. Then Sat Ajayata, this manifest universe was born. And Tad Atmanam Swayam, Tad Atmanam Swayam Kurat. Right? So that Brahman, Akurata, created, that Ishvara created Atmanam. Atmanam is, here it is not Satchit Ananda Atma. It's a reflexive pronouns. I myself. When I say I myself, that I is a reflexive pronoun referring to me. So Tat Brahman Atmanam by himself without having any additional help. Right? That Brahman Atmanam by himself, Swayam Atmanam by himself, Akurata, he created the universe. What is the idea? Swayam, the word Swayam is the Nimitta Karanam. Atmanam by himself is the Upadana Karanam. And therefore that Brahman, here remember, we are talking about Maya Sahita Brahman, which is Ishvara. So this Ishvara is the Nimitta Karanam and the Upadana Karanam. Is both the material and the product as well as the creator. Is the Nimitta Karanam, the Upadana Karanam, and the Karya. Right? So Brahman is both Nimitta Karanam as well as Maya, the Upadana Karanam, as well as Jagat, the Karya. So this very important to understand. Unmanifest Jagat is called Ishvara. Manifest Jagat, or manifest Ishvara is called Jagat. Right? Unmanifest Jagat is called Ishvara. Manifested Ishvara is called Jagat. And therefore, a very, very good question. If you think, if you believe that this universe exists, how can you not believe that Brahman exists, Ishvara exists? And therefore, Tasmat Tat Sukrutam Uchyata Iti. That is the next part of Moolam. Tasmat, therefore, Tat Uchyate. When you break the sandhi, it becomes Tasmat Tat Sukrutam Uchyate Iti. So Tasmat, therefore, Tat Uchyate, it is said that Brahman is said to be Sukrutam Iti. This is the ending. Iti means that's the ending of the Rig mantra. Okay. So the word, what he says is that Brahman, it is said now, therefore it is said now, that Brahman himself or itself is said to be Sukrutam. Then the question is, what is this word Sukrutam mean? Right? Because Shruti didn't explain that. So Shankara says Sukrutam means Swayam Kartru, the one who creates by himself, which means you reconcile it to what we just talked about. There is no Upadana Karanam separate from him. There is no other assistant also. Therefore, Sukrutam means Swayam Kartu, the creator who creates by himself. He is the creator, he is the Upadana Karanam, he is the product, the creation also. Any instrument, he also is. And therefore, this Swayam Kartrih, he says, Shankara says, is well known in the world as Brahma Iti. Now question is, Sukrutam, the normal meaning is what?
Righteous action.
Beg your pardon?
A righteous, noble action.
Yes,
Virtuous.
good. Sukrutam means a good action. By extension,
Shubham, or doing something.
Punyam. Punyam.
by
Or
extension it is punyam. Right. So the literal meaning, remember, of in Shastram, that Sukrutam has two meanings. It can be taken as the noble action, as the righteous action, according dharmic action rather, and it can be taken as the result of dharmic action, which is punyam. And therefore, the literal meaning of Sukrutam is punyam, How then do you reconcile with Shankara when he says it means Swayam Kartu? Okay. So the Purva Mimamsa, it has a rule that when a person performs a dharmic action, a yajna for example, punyam is generated. Then the phalam, the fruit of that yajna generated punyam is going to Swarga, going to heaven. And after the death of the Yajamana, the person who has performed the yajna, what happens? That Swarga phalam has to be enjoyed by Yajamana. Okay, remember I said Purva Mimamsa. Why did I say Purva Mimamsa? Because this is what Purva Mimamsa says. But it also says that after the death of the physical body of the Yajamana, the punyam generated by the yajna will be enjoyed by the Yajamana in Swarga. Who gives that Swarga phalam?
Normally we say
Karma
karma
phala
phala data.
Ishvara, right? Karma phala data. But the problem is what? Purva Mimamsa is Astika Nastika. What does that mean? We have discussed all this earlier. So there are Astika Astikas, Astika Nastikas, Nastika Nastikas, Astika Astikas. Which one is Purva Mimamsa? Astika Nastika. The two words mean one of them he accepts Veda. The Astika means he accepts Veda. Nastika means he does not accept Ishvara. Upadesha Saram, don't you remember? What was the first verse?
Kartura agneya karma taija
Karturagnaya.
Exactly. So that Ramana Maharishi was telling the Purva
karma
Mimamsaka that karma is absolutely inert. How can it give punya? Because that is the theory of the Purva Mimamsika, that there is no Ishvara who gives phalam. Karma itself gives phalam. Right? So, according to his theory, if supposing the yajna of yours is the last, you are a yajamana and this is the last yajna, that your karma ends with your last yajna, but the punyam remains. And that punyam remains with the yajamana until it is exhausted. And therefore, the punyam itself will carry you to Swarga. No need of Ishvara. Right? What does Vedantin say? He says once karma is done, Ishvara gives the karma phala. This, you don't need to bring in the concept of punyam at all. The punyam, as defined by the Purva Mimamsika, is not really relevant for us, we say. Right? However, if you look at it, the punyam of the Purva Mimamsika is doing the job of karma phaladata. Right? The Purva Mimamsika says punyam takes you to Swarga. We say Ishvara takes you to Swarga. Ishvara is karma phaladata. The Mimamsika doesn't have Ishvara at all. But the function is the same. The punyam there is performing the same function as the Ishvara of us, or our Ishvara. Why is Vedanta considered better? Because punyam is jadam and Ishvara is sentient. Therefore, how can jada punyam give proper phala at proper time? Taking all these into account, Shankara says, Supratam has to be taken as not the punyam, but as ancient being, which is Ishvara. So whichever way you interpret punyam, whether as in the Mimamsika sense of no Ishvara required, or in the Vedantic sense of Ishvara required, what is the underlying thread? That is the connector between the fruit and the doer. the phalam connected to the karta, right? And who is the connector? Well known in the world as karma, phala, data. And therefore, Shankara says you have to take skrutam as having the meaning of Ishvara. Right? So, very nice discussion. And therefore, Brahman is existent because he is knowing as Swayam Kartu. Then, Yadvai Tat Sukrutam Raso Vai Saha. That's again the Moolam. Sukrutam. That now Sukrutam is being taken as Ishvara. So, Tat Sukrutam, that Brahman, Yadvai, which is Rasaha. Rasaha here means Ananda because Rasaha gives you happiness. It's tasty, it gives you happiness. Therefore, Rasaha is Anandaha. And therefore, he says that Ananda exists in this world is evidence of Brahman's existence. The fact that you can be happy is nothing but evidence of Brahman's existence. And this we can explain in two ways. One is we can say the primary Ananda, Brahman, is the source of Ananda for all jnanis. Right? For jnanis, the source of Ananda is what? Brahman. Because they are not supposed to be getting any Vishaya. For Ajnanis, Vishaya Ananda is the source of Ananda. Now, question is, so it's a very important question. Okay. Brahman is the source of Ananda for all Jnanis. Vishayananda is the source of Ananda for all non-Jnanis. Vishayananda, everybody knows, Ananda which is generated by material objects. Your samosa, your jalebi, money in your bank, your new Mercedes car, all Vishayananda. The question is that in the Jnani's case, all the conventional sources of Vishayananda he has renounced. So he should be miserable, right? If the Vishayas were the only source of Ananda, if objects of this world were the only source of Ananda, since Jnanis have renounced all these sources, he should be miserable. But what is the reality? That Jnani is always happy. And therefore, he has no source of Vishayananda. What is the source? Since he has no, anyway, Vishayananda, remember, is an external source because all objects of happiness are external to you. So, since the Jnani has renounced all Vishayananda, he has renounced all external sources of happiness, and therefore, Parishesha Nyayena. What is Parishesha Nyaya? That which is left over. What is left over when you have renounced external sources?
Atmananda.
आत्मन्येव आत्मनतुष्टः.
Internal sources are left. Right. So, internal source, it is produced by. No. So, if an internal source, when you say, you can look at the body and the mind, etc. So, your happiness doesn't come from your heart or your lungs or your kidneys. Therefore, the source of Ananda has to be different from Sthula, Sukshma, and Karana Shariram. So, Sthula, Sukshma, Karana, Vyatiriktaha source. And that is Atma alone. Okay. That is one way of explaining. Another way of explaining is the dog and bone example, which you have seen before. When the non-jnani gets Ananda, he actually is getting it from Atma only, from Brahman only. But because of the non-recognition of Brahman, he thinks he is getting it from Vishayas. Okay. When a jnani eats, let us say, strawberry ice cream, he knows that the strawberry ice cream is only reflecting my Atmananda. When the non-jnani eats strawberry ice cream, he thinks the strawberry ice cream is generating the ananda. So Anvaya Vyatireka Nyayaha. What is that? Take the dog and the dry bone example. So what is the logic? Before biting bone, no blood, no taste. After biting bone, blood and taste. Conclusion, bone alone is the source of blood. What is the problem in this logic?
The blood comes from his own, it's his own, not the bone, which is.
Correct. The problem is blood belongs to dog, not the bone. Therefore, the contribution of the bone is what?
It is helping to reveal, or it is revealing his true happiness.
In other words, it provides the condition necessary for manifesting the blood of the dog, not of the bone.
Yeah.
So now convert that into our discussion. Objects of the world do not provide ananda because they are not capable of providing ananda. But because of attachment, because of raga, the ananda is projected onto the object. It becomes a source for manifesting the ananda. Because of the projection, superimposition of ananda on that object becomes the revealer of the ananda already existing in you. It is not manifesting the ananda. It's not manifesting its own ananda. It's manifesting the ananda already present in you. Therefore, the external object creates a thought, a shanta vritti, right? All that the external object does is to create that shanta vritti, priya, moda, pramoda vritti. You should carefully note, it creates the vritti, does not create the ananda. But because of that vritti, which is very, very fine vritti, and that's why it's called shanta vritti, your own ananda is reflected in that vritti. And therefore you think, oh, the strawberry ice cream gave me ananda. Okay. Any questions? So, yeah.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
So do we need something like the ice cream or the jalebi to experience the Atmananda, because that is the one which is creating the Shantavriti?
The Agnani feels so.
See,
I'm trying to understand.
Atmananda you can never experience by itself.
Yes. That's
Just like you cannot see your eyes without the mirror.
RM. Yeah.
Yes. But you should know that you have the eyes. You don't need the mirror to know that I've got eyes. But to see the eyes, you need the mirror. You should know that I am Atmananda itself. But you should not need Vishaya to know that Atmananda is there. The Vishaya will help you experience the Atmananda. But even while experiencing the Atmananda, you should tell yourself that that is a reflection of the Atmananda, which is mine, which I am.
Right.
I am experiencing the Atmananda, which I am, because there is a Vishaya there. But even if the Vishaya is not there, the experience may not be there. In fact, you might be terribly sad and crying, okay, because of some external tragedy. You might be weeping tears in buckets. At that point, also, can you tell yourself that, yes, my nature is Satchitananda? Can you claim Ananda as your nature, even in the presence of terrible tragedy? That shows that. It doesn't mean that you're going to dance over there, right? At some funeral pyre, you're not dancing. You are also in white clothes and expressing. But do you know that in the presence of the sorrow also, can you say, no, I am Atma?
Yes. Understood.
Okay, so with this, we'll stop for today. Any questions? Okay. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat. Om Namah
Om
Shivaya.
Tat
Thank
Sat.
you for your
Om Namah
patience. Om
Shivaya.
Om.
Thank you, Raviji.
Thank you.